Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Pace Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember, when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show!
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wholesale Hotline. This is going to be unique. I think this is the first time that it has been women only. So you don't get PB&J today. You get me, Laura Morby. I'm Pace Morby's wife, and you get the wonderful, beautiful AnnMarie Norton, who is Jerry Norton's wife, a crowd favorite amongst everyone here. So we today are going to go through kind of more of a fun, relational type of setup. So I'm going to ask AnnMarie some wonderful questions. She's had a wonderful, beautiful marriage to someone who is probably a lot like a lot of you who are in the chat and who are watching live. And I don't know if anyone has ever had some, issues or butting of heads when you live this lifestyle, high risk, lots of work. It's kind of a wild ride. I always describe my relationship with Pace as a roller coaster. I'm just holding on for dear life sometimes. So, all the things that come with being a support system to somebody like that and having a family and raising children. And AnnMarie is a mother of 10 amazingly beautiful children, and she has so much wisdom to share with everyone today. This is a favorite topic of mine, and I think it's a favorite topic of AnnMarie's as well.
Totally.
So this is going to be kind of fun. So feel free to post some questions that you have in the chat, because I'd love to answer some personal questions as well. And if any of you have a significant other, this is non-gendered, non-sexuality, anybody can be the one who's going and getting them, and anybody can be the stay-at-home support system. So if you have someone who is your support system that you want to go grab them, or you want to shoot them the link to this so they can tune in with you, Definitely. And then maybe you guys can have a conversation about it later on tonight. A nice, fun one, not a aggressive, confrontational one. Just a nice, loving discussion, maybe over a nice dinner. Who knows? Mm-hmm. So, AnnMarie, a lot of people, someone just said, hang on, she has 10 kids. So people don't know everything about you. So I wanted to start off with just like a little fun story about you and Jerry and how you met. And, that way people can kind of get like your framework from where you were as a person when you jumped on Jerry's roller coaster.
Okay, I'm going to let all the cats out of the bag, all the skeletons out of the closet.
I love it. Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, so things kind of started really different for us. We got married super young. I'm not going to say actually how young, because it's a little bit embarrassing, but we were definitely too young to know what was going on. And he had just served a mission for our church. I had grown up in Switzerland, actually, and we landed in Michigan pretty much on the same day. We met each other at church. We were both like in culture shock. And he told me that he wanted to be a 9-to-5 chiropractor.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. He wanted to be a chiropractor. And I was like, perfect. I grew up in this really affluent school, and I don't want anything to do with money whatsoever. Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm totally out. So if you're just going to be like a chiropractor, no risk, 9-to-5.
Yes.
I was like totally in.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
This is fascinating.
Right?
Yes, you're bringing up so many things. So one of the things that I would like to point out is that when you guys got married, other than the example of your parents' relationships, neither of you really were like in these long-term, very serious adult relationships before marrying each other. So you have had to learn together
Totally.
while building a business and having children, which both of those things make a relationship extra hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then you said too that him changing his mind. I think that's one of the things that I get a lot of questions personally that come to me is from support systems who are in a relationship with someone who just decided to get into real estate and
Right.
they're completely unaware of this whole world. They get thrown into it. There's a lot of risk involved. There's sometimes people have their 9 to 5s while they're working on their dreams,
We did that
and
too.
it just they get so upset and frustrated. So when did
Mhm.
Jerry decide to I wasn't going to ask you this question, but you kind of knowing that he was going to be a chiropractor. I
Mhm.
know that.
Yeah.
When did he decide to change and go full entrepreneur?
Yeah, so it was like the best timing ever. I was like pregnant with baby number 3.
Yep.
So I'm like, super pregnant, super nesty. And I walk into my room and I see him like hiding under the covers with Art of the Deal by Donald Trump.
Oh no.
And I was like, that man's evil and he's a womanizer. And why do you want to know anything he has to say? Put that book away. Like we got in a big fight. I was
Yes.
like, we're about to have our 3rd kid.
Yeah,
need
what
to,
are you doing?
Yeah, have your priorities straight. And so, he kind of like slipped it under the covers, calmed down the pregnant wifey. And then I had the baby
Yep.
and I'm literally on the way home from the hospital. And he's like, hey, I have something I want to show you, like on our way home. Okay, this is Michigan. This is in Pontiac. Okay, so
Oh my
it's
goodness.
pretty depressed area that
Yep.
he brings me into in
Mhm.
Pontiac. There's lots of like boards on windows and bars. And so he like points to these 2 houses. He's like, I just bought those.
He drove you there on the way home from the hospital.
I was like, just started crying and was like, you just had a baby. Normal people only have 1 house. What's wrong with you? Or like,
Yes.
how can we afford this? So I was like, not on the, same page about it at all. My brain was on the inside of the family and these relationships and all these needs that were coming. And we were young enough that I didn't see the goodness of somebody having their eye on the outside looking in and somebody having the goodness of the inside realm only. And so
Yes.
back then it was just this, tug of war. And if I
Yeah.
could go back and talk to my younger self, I would be like, no, there's goodness in both. And you're totally right. It doesn't matter whether it's she or he who's doing either one,
Yeah.
but there can be some real synergy in having somebody's eye on both different sections.
Absolutely.
Fast forward, like really all this equality and everything, I don't really know that I really agree with that to some extent. Like if you're changing a diaper and it's going to be perfectly fair and you are like, okay, you go get the diaper, I'll get the wipes, you actually wipe, I'll put the diaper on, then you put the clothes. Like that would be
And it took 30 minutes to change one diaper rather than just, yeah.
right. Versus one person who can really have their eye on the ball.
Mhm.
And so I didn't learn how to value the need for both perspectives for a family to really survive and flourish and connect and do amazing things.
Yes.
So that was my younger self, and I had to learn. We both had to learn.
We'll talk about jumping into the deep end of the pool. And you brought up something too that I get a lot and that I'm even sometimes struggle with, especially after I have a new baby, which I
Yeah.
did, is
Uh-huh.
when you have someone who's out there and doing that stuff and they're looking on the outside while you're focused on the inside. Sometimes it almost seems like you're living a completely different life.
Mhm.
And so I actually said that to Pace. I just went and surprised him in Dallas. I flew with 3 kids by myself, and I got there, and of course he's doing a meetup for his birthday, and his meetup is a Q&A, and he brings both girls up on the stage, and they haven't napped, and they had a long busy day of being in the airport. And
Oh,
so
man.
he tells me to pull one down. I pull down our 2-year-old, and I have the baby. Loses her mind so loud that I pulled her completely out of this massive venue. Go buy her ice cream to settle her down.
Oh,
She
man.
falls asleep because she's just totally exhausted. This guy doesn't like being out and about past 6 p.m. Like, he's like, take me home. I want to be cozy with my mom. He
Yep.
starts freaking out. Then I go back in and I'm able to finish listening to Pace. Pace has Corbin, our 5-year-old, up on stage, and she's aggressively showing that she's bored. And I'm sure everyone can see what this is. She has no social awareness that maybe you should pretend like
Right.
you're interested while you're around a bunch
No.
of people. And so she's like flopping all over
No.
the couch. And so I try to go get her. Of course, she doesn't want me to come down. And then Pace goes, hey, once it's over, everyone's sings him happy birthday. He says, I'm going to take some pictures. Why don't you go wait in the car, and I'll be there in a second. So it takes him about an hour and a half, and I have all the kids and everyone's screaming, and I'm trying to make sure everyone's okay, and everyone's hungry. He gets back in the car at like 10:30 at night, and he goes, hey, let's go have dinner with everybody. And of course, it's a fancy dinner. It's a sit down. It's
Yeah.
appetizers. It's
Yep.
dessert.
Horses.
And I was like, there is no way that we're going to survive a restaurant. So we went back to the hotel room, put the kids to sleep. Of course, everyone is overstimulated, overtired. It was a nightmare. And then we wake up the next day, and I want to go watch him speak on this stage that he was excited for. And I was like, all the kids are, at that age where they don't understand if dad's working, they can't scream and yell and go run up on stage and be with him.
Uh-huh.
So he was he was like, well, you can come, but a lot of people paid a lot of money to be here, so everyone's going to be distracting. Why don't you just stay home? And then we got on the flight and went home. And so he and I were talking, and I said, we're just like living completely different lives. We really
Yeah.
are. And
Yeah.
that's really hard when you're married. And I know it's temporary, of course, and everything comes back, and you have to nurture and love your marriage, which you are very good at that. And I am very bad at that. And,
Mhm.
so it's like one of those
I don't
things
know
where
about that.
like when you're on this totally different paths, it can feel super lonely when you have your entrepreneur husband going out and taking more risks and taking on more things that are going to take him away from the family and doing all this stuff, which you just said, if I could go back and tell the past version of yourself that that's equally as important as what's going on with what you're doing. Oh my gosh, we have a guy who was messing with Jamil last week. So now I guess he's going to mess with me. If anybody remembers Jamil from last week. But Carly, you might have to block this guy, but I'm sure he'll be back. But can you elaborate a little bit on, you saying that that's equally as valuable, or how you got your mindset? What changed your mindset? Was it just time? Was it proof of him being able to make money? What was it?
No, I don't think it was proof of him being able to make money. I mean, I think if I was going to narrow it down to one thing, I think it's ownership and integrity.
Okay.
And so what ended up happening is we were living such a separate life. And I remember going back to Michigan after we'd moved away and driving around with him, and he was showing me like all the streets inside Pontiac, because that was one of his main stomping grounds, at the beginning. And him being like, I flipped this house and I flipped that house and I renovated this, and I knew this contractor that lived over here. And I was like, I don't know any of these streets. I didn't know that like that's what you were doing. Even just his different strategies. I mean, I was like super duper hands off.
Yeah.
And I really had to be, because the stage of our kids were exactly like what you're doing right now, where you literally got a baby in your arms. I nursed my babies, you know, until I had another baby. So really have had a baby in my arms for the last 23 years.
Back to back to back to back to back.
Exactly. Exactly. I was pregnant and nursing, or like both. The
Look at that.
entire, yeah.
Me taking a cue from your playbook to get some help when I need it. So
Yes.
and not feel guilty doing so.
Exactly.
So you, sorry to have cut you off, but you're
That's
talking.
okay.
You're talking about how you had to you were completely unaware of what was going on because you couldn't, because you were in the phase of life that I'm in right now.
Yep. It wasn't the right time. And, you know, so I struggled with it for a while. And I think it's normal and natural, and it's human nature to kind of want to feel like you're a victim to your situation and that things aren't good because of your situation, not as much the ownership of the thoughts that you are cultivating about your situation. And
it's really interesting.
Okay.
Yes, it's like kind of like the stories you tell yourself or something, or like your perception of your own reality.
Right. Right. And it's much easier to kind of be a victim about it, because then you don't have to do any work. You have like a little bit of a pass.
Yeah.
And so I kind of in a way was like using my babies as a pass to really cultivate the kind of even mom I wanted to be, or the kind of wife that I wanted to be, or to cultivate the real gifts inside of me. It was easier to just be like, well, you know, we're passing ships, or I can't do this stuff without your help. And that is a lot of what I've heard in the entrepreneurs that I've talked with and worked with, is just sometimes, especially if there's a partner that's not helping with the business, that just gets really resentful because they're doing so much on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of really looking and having integrity, which is why I said that earlier, about what really was going to be the most synergy for us to move forward,
Mm-hmm.
I was just cultivating stories to kind of get myself off the hook. And Jerry had to live his mission and his true self. And some people are called to only be family men, and that's amazing. And they do amazing things in their life. But some people are called to be family men and be entrepreneurs. And I don't think one is better or worse. I had to look at that as a spouse from a different perspective and see the world takes many kinds. And even though my dad maybe was a little bit more of a family man, judging my husband that he needed to be the same way as my dad was not helping our marriage. It was definitely not helping, you know, encourage and inspire him to be at home more, when I was just judging and finding fault with everything that he was doing the whole time.
Yep.
And so I really just was like, it got to critical mass where it just was, we were passing ships. The resentment was building. And it was like, either I need to jump in and choose being married to this man and who he is, entrepreneurship and all, or I need to choose out. But just this like straddling is just being a victim in my life, and life's full of tough choices. And maybe some of these things are hard, but overall, like the pros of being married to this man and being able to see the power of influence, the impact he's had on inspiring entrepreneurs to be able to experience family, inspiring entrepreneurs to, you know, get out of their W-2s and be able to have freedom through real estate. Like, he's impacted hundreds of thousands, and I can share that. Like, I think that's for good, and encouraging, and me really owning my role, like gave him permission to really own and be balanced in his role.
Right.
And it turned me into the CEO of our home.
Yes.
Where I'm like, no, I'm really going to apply myself the way that he is. So I am not bored. I am not a victim. I am creating something just as amazing, just as beautiful. There's no apology. I had one time when, like, so many years where I was thinking, oh my gosh, he's up front and center. I'm behind the scenes. I do have a really like more bold, you know, organized type A kind of personality, and just feeling like I'm losing my skills to wiping counters and bottoms, and it's the same monotonous thing until one day, like kind of starting to get into some business stuff and organizing different like homeschool co-ops. So I was creating these communities again to support the inside of the family while he was really creating communities to support the outside.
Right.
And I realized, holy crap, I have some amazing skills. It doesn't matter whether you're flipping properties and you're leading groups of people, or if you're like organizing your own homestead and being able to, manage and systematize and have people working for you, or managing teens, the self-discipline, the ability to self-validate when you have no sleep and your kids are telling you that they hate you because you told them they could not have Rice Krispie treats for dinner.
Yeah.
You don't have all these accolades. I don't have somebody calling me a flipping genius every day.
Yeah.
Maybe
No.
a flipping jerk sometimes. And
Yeah.
to self-validate through that, I realized actually when I am moving it into the business world, those are super woman powers, and they translate immediately to anything that I put in, that I'm like, I have been growing myself up so good for the last 23 years, just like him.
Right.
And this whole like one up, one down dynamic, it was like gone.
Yeah. You don't
And
need
that's
it.
when our marriage was just like, oh, look at you. Look at these talents that you have. Look at these gifts. They're so different than mine. I
Yes.
love that they're so different. This is polarity,
Yep.
masculine energy, feminine energy. Like I'm not talking about genders. I'm talking about poles, North
Yeah.
Pole, South Pole.
Yeah.
And the more that we make those exaggerated, the more passion we have, because it's not a tug of war anymore. It's like, no, I don't want to be married to myself. That would be annoying.
Yeah. That would be horrible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And it's a good compliment. You said so many things that I am like, I should be writing down notes. Every time I talk to you, there are about 100 things that I want to remember, and I probably commit 5 to memory, especially
You're
right
so
now
sweet.
with like little kids. I always say I have like 2 brain cells being
Oh
bonging
yeah.
around in my head, and one is fully dedicated to my brand new baby,
Yeah.
and the other one is picking up things here and there and dropping the rest. Um, I like what you're talking about, like what I call it is like manning your stations. And so that's kind of how I say it is like, oh, like I'm going to go full mom mode and you're going to go full business mode. And if we can cross at any time, it's beautiful and it's fun. I'm not saying Pace is a very fantastic dad and he can be very hands-on, but I don't expect that of him. And I'm not mad if he's not doing it,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yep.
I think that most people, well, I guess a lot of people in here already are making a lot of money. So I shouldn't say that everyone here is a beginner, but we are going to find some beginners. And I think that one of the things that bothered me the most when I was in a relationship with someone who wanted to be an entrepreneur was the permanent talking about it and not doing anything and just continuing to be lazy. Now, neither of us are married to men who are like that. But I do want to touch on that as far as like the beginning frustration that might be coming from your partner. For some of the people who are watching this, if you're just consuming content and talking about it and planning it and you're not actually doing it and you're not showing your significant other that, number one, it's possible. And number two, it might have some really beautiful things that can come from it. AnnMarie is talking about Jerry impacting people's lives, and he has. I mean, 5 years ago, I remember scrubbing my floor and putting on Jerry's seller calls so that I could be better at doing the intake for our Homevestors business. So Jerry really has been that person for so many people's education and so many people's ways to get out of, bad jobs, bad businesses, to come into real estate and to make good money for their family where they can actually enjoy themselves. So do you have anything to touch on as far as like when you had no proof of concept that what Jerry was doing wasn't just throwing your money out the window at horrible, boarded up, scary homes in Pontiac, or any sort of struggles that you can talk about when you guys didn't have any money? Because I think a lot of people probably watching this are probably like, well, Jerry and Pace make good money. So of course you guys, what are you guys complaining about? Like I have issues because I don't have any money, and I could, go on that for forever, but I'd love to hear what you think. Cause I don't know if you guys always had money. I'm assuming not, cause you guys were so young. There's no way you had
No
figured
way.
out how to, consistently make great money.
Yeah, no way. We definitely, I mean, when we first got married, we were so poor that we couldn't afford meat to put on his sandwiches. He was working construction
Yep.
and super physical labor. He would literally have a sandwich with like plastic processed Velveeta cheese, because that was the cheapest kind of cheese,
Yes.
and mustard.
Yes.
With
For
no
some
meat.
flavor. Yeah.
We
So
were so poor.
how did you, when before proof of concept, like, hey, this can work and we can make some chunks of money or we can own some properties together. How did you get over any sort of, and maybe you hadn't at that point, maybe that's the key, is like men or the dominant person who's going out there and getting into real estate needs to show that this can actually work before someone's going to get on board with you. What kind of things were you struggling with? Like, were you upset? Like, did he take any extra money you had and bought those houses in Pontiac? And obviously it was a surprise, were
You had a baby.
like, how a lot of people might be thinking about, how dare he not tell her that's what I'm dealing with right now? I'm having someone who I'm in a committed relationship going out and making these choices that affect us both, that I'm not on board with, that I haven't been consulted on.
Yeah.
And that happens to me too.
Yeah.
And it just happens because they can't, like, I'm like,
I know.
What Jerry's got going on, what Pace has got going on, they can't run everything past you. And plus, I got enough going on that I can't hear it.
Yeah, exactly. I know people will come up to me and, talk to me about different deals that they know about that Jerry's doing. And I'm looking at him like,
Cool.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I heard about his boutique hotel that he bought from the stage.
Okay, and that was what, like a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Totally.
that's because Rosie was a teeny tiny little baby, probably. He probably didn't have the time or want to bring that to you.
Not only that, but like in order for me to do, I'm also homeschooling 7 of those kids right now. I just barely had one graduate like this past school year. So, and I am completely running the household, like 100%. Jerry wouldn't even know how to like scan something at the store, or because I have taken on that role so much. And
so going back to ownership.
Right. I just was like, this isn't about whose job is better or worse. This is just like, let's get together and let's be honest about both of our skill sets, both of our desires and what kinds of experiences we want to have in life.
Yep.
And then let's split it up that way. But we're not going to split up all the things that are hard about what I'm really good at and all the things that are hard about what you're really good at, and make sure that we're doing them 50-50. Kind of like what you talked about, like Pace is the capacity. I've seen him to be super present, fun dad, but like, that's not his primary responsibility. It is like looking on the outside. And so you understand he has to have ownership over that stewardship. And I don't want to say first, but it's just, it's not that it's first. He just knows you've got it.
Right.
And so that he can go and move out there. And so I'm a bad example because I was not supportive of Jerry. I also told him YouTube was a really bad idea.
Which is so wild, because that's how I knew who Jerry was, is because of YouTube. And I love Jerry's YouTube. I am like a nut about it. Yeah. And so I would be one of the people that'd be like, you're a flipping genius. And meanwhile, you're hearing, you're a flipping jerk from your kids at home.
Totally.
Seriously. Yeah.
I don't know. And that like wasn't my craft. So for me to make a call that like the hotel is a bad idea, or for me to make a call that YouTube is a bad idea when I'm not in the industry. So I've kind of let go. And I mean, for really big decisions that are important to me, I say to him, I really need to know about as these things come up. He absolutely will tell me. Right. But in order for me to stay focused on what I've wanted to be focused on, and my babies are older, and I am moving into the business world more because I want to grow all the different parts of me, now that I can. But like I was just not supportive. I did think that I knew everything about everything, and I didn't submit to that he was just different than me and he had different superpowers than me. And
Right.
it really wasn't until actually I feel like where I really got supportive of him, maybe to all of the like people on the call who are the ones that are trying to get their spouse to be on board with them, because as a spouse, I don't feel like that was me. I was not very I wasn't, I mean, I was supportive in that I like got stuff done and I really did hold on to the household, hold on to the raising the kids, figuring out homeschooling. Um, just educated myself where my background comes from, being trauma informed and human development. And we're talking like 10,000 hours. So Jerry really could relax of like, this woman is really diving all into being responsible about having these kids.
Right.
And I was expecting and that he was going to be doing the same with what he had jurisdiction over, and that we'd be a really awesome team. But where the resentment really ended for me is a conversation that we had where I kind of pushed on him a little bit, and he was talking about how he was doing everything for me and the kids. And I knew that that wasn't true. And that's where the integrity part comes in.
Right.
That is so much more important. To be supportive of someone, you can't be supportive of them unless you actually trust that they're telling you the truth. So either way, having integrity for a marriage to work, for a business to work, for parenting to work, top priority. So I called him out and was like, no, you're not. I don't want any more money. And if this is just doing it for me, I don't want you away anymore. Like, we're good. We're comfortable. We have an amazing
You have
lifestyle.
enough money. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then he was like, you're right. I'm doing this because of me and because it's what I feel like I'm called to do. And when he stopped trying to not be honest and push it as though it was some outside thing, then I was able to really trust and be like, he's confronting that what is for the greater good. And it's not just even just about our family. This is also about impact that he can have. And I want my
Other
kids,
people's families. I mean, our family.
yeah, and I want my kids to see that we do good inside our home for each other, but that we also have impact on community.
Right.
And I was like, that's amazing. And when he was able to own it and also say, and this is what I love, this is part of my craft, this is who I am, and just be honest and it be okay that he loves what he does and he doesn't have to be a martyr, and was
Right.
like, wow, he's figuring out how to love what he does. What can I do to figure out how to love what I do and to feel like I'm doing it really well? And that's really where that tug of war just
Snapped, and you guys
Yeah.
are both able. Yeah. This
I
is
mean,
so.
I still fall into it sometimes. Let's be real.
Of course. I mean, there's certain things that can set off, certain emotions, especially older ones.
Mhm.
Because of course we're human beings. Like, as much as like Jerry and Pace seem like these superhuman pillars that are just perfect, there will be some things that can kind of make you feel a certain type of way, because you and I are living very real lives with human beings,
Yeah.
And so I do think Pace is like, and Jerry are like God amongst men, but at the same time they are human and they
Oh yeah.
do things interestingly. You
Yeah.
said a couple of things that I wanted to also just kind of pull apart here. So when you're talking about ownership, you initially started out with you taking ownership of your role, and obviously, any sort of um resentment or what are you doing or feeling like your life is out of control, um you took ownership of your role, which is easy to do when you have beautiful kids, and as tough as being a mom is, there's a lot of wonderful feedback that we get from the job and owning our mom job, where we can really get some love and cute moments, and we're soaking up all of this really precious time with our babies. um you're also then saying you had to be okay with him taking ownership fully of his side. So that's like decision making that maybe you don't need to hear everything. You don't need to be a part of everything. And that's fine, because also he's not a part of every decision you're making on the kids
Right.
at home. And he's allowing you to do that because he trusts you and how serious you took your role. But I
Right.
also wanted to talk about how you said that there's two things I wanted to touch on. So you said that he is happy doing what he's doing. Now, this is so weird, but I see this in so many couples where they're actually angry that their spouse is happy at work. So it's like, Pace is a very good example of this. And I think that this seeing Pace have such a good time at work maybe makes some women who are struggling with this be like, how is Laura okay with all of this? Amongst all the hard work and the hard decisions and the pressure and, being responsible for payroll and all sorts of, things that are really stressful that are on top of Pace. Pace has figured out a way to have fun doing what he's doing. He's friends with people that he does business with. He can post on social media and look like he's having a good ride of a time. Meanwhile, I haven't peed in 8 hours and I look like a bird took up residence in my hair and I'm still in my pajamas at 1:00 in the afternoon. And so,
Gosh, I've been there.
I've never had a problem with him finding joy, but I know that bothers a lot of people. It's like, well, you're at work. This is hard. You should be having a hard time like me, And so you're talking about, you've said this like a few times where it's like, who comparing all the time. And so when you said he finds joy in that bothers a lot of people.
Mhm.
And so I don't think that necessarily ever bothered you, and it didn't bother me. But I think that you unknowingly said the key to getting rid of that. And you said, I want to find joy and happiness in what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
awesome.
yeah. And so like, what does that look like? And so, maybe some people are like, well, it's easy for you guys to find joy because you can go hire a nanny or a cleaner, and then you're having less of a time demand, and then you're able to go find these fulfilling things that fill your cup and make you happy. And I don't think that that's the case, because I was able to find joy in my role even when money was tough. And I think that some of the best times in my marriage have been when we're broke as a joke and we're sharing a car, and and being a part of an entrepreneur life, sometimes there are ups and downs. There's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
I think, finding joy in, and of course we can't speak to every support system that's watching this. How do you find joy? For me, like, it's little things like going outside, putting my feet in the grass. Sometimes it's just getting myself a little tasty drink, whatever that is, going and getting an Arizona, iced tea from the gas station, going and buying myself a pack of gum used to make me really happy. It's just these little like self-care, loving moments that you can do for yourself, and realizing that I don't have to, and it's not healthy either, to rely on your significant other as the sole source of your happiness. You can't be, at home, manning the home and miserable and waiting until your significant other comes home to make you happy, because you're not going to be happy and they're walking into a situation where you're miserable and it's obvious you're miserable. So again, this goes back to ownership, is taking ownership of your own happiness.
Totally.
And so it's like, I'm not asking Pace, hey, can I go, buy a pack of gum? I'm just going and doing it because I deserve to, be happy and enjoy my life as well. So Pace is telling us there's good questions in the comments. There's a lot of really good questions in the comments, to be honest.
I can't see any questions.
Oh, you can't? Okay. Well,
No.
there's been some, we have a person who is a troll, as they say in the internet world. So he's been saying he keeps making new YouTube profiles and saying horrible stuff. So he got blocked a bunch of times, but that's actually kind of good that you can't see those comments. But I'll put a few of them up on here too. But there's so many questions. I could honestly probably talk to you, and I have talked to you for a lot of time, and you've shared so many wonderful things with me. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you too, Laura. We should do this more often.
I wrote like 50 questions down, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to get through all of these. Oh my gosh, there's so many good questions on here. I want to ask you everything, because I also feel like these are things that I get asked, and there's things that I personally would love, your input on.
And I want your input, I'm sure, on some of these questions.
No, but it's really good.
We gotta hang together.
Yeah. So I guess I wanted to ask a few. Oh gosh, this is so hard. I want to ask you. like, how can I pick one more and then get to questions? Maybe we just get to questions. And if people want more from us, maybe you and I can do something together, because there are some really good questions in here.
It's a big part of having a business. Like, you can't be focused. You can't do family really well if your business sucks.
No.
And you can't do your business really well if in the back of your mind you've got this nattering voices about your marriage or how you are as a parent. And I absolutely believe that building both at the same time is what just gives rocket fuel to your business. Like, we started making a lot more money when we were in synergy because we were so Twitter-pated and like just on cloud nine, infatuated. It wasn't a tug of war anymore, that like money just started flowing. Honestly, people don't think of it as a strategy, but you can be so focused when you are really feeling this wholeness coming from your relationships. It's amazing. I want to shout about it from the rooftops.
I mean, I sometimes people have called me codependent. I don't think I'm codependent because I'm hyper independent, but I have noticed that when we have issues in our marriage, it's almost like I can't do anything else. I'm focused on either rehearsing what was said or what I could do. And so if like as a support system, you're constantly creating strife and, on both sides, it's just, of course they're not going to be able to focus and think clearly and make good decisions.
Right. And I'm not a good parent then either. I'm more snappy with my kids. I can't find that joy. So, I mean, you do want to create your joy, like you're saying, from within, from yourself.
Yes.
But something that you do and cultivate yourself is that intentional, the SOPs that you need to do to actually create that connection that you do have charge over. Learning how to cherish is something that is an art. That's part of how you be happy. It's not something that just happens on its own. It takes practice.
Yeah. And a lot of things in marriage are effort based. You have to make the effort.
Oh yeah.
Diane has really good comments in here. She's asked us a few questions, but this has come up a few times, and I don't know if it's Diane repeating, so I'm so sorry. But she wants to know how you get over the resentment.
You want to go first, Laura?
I mean, for mine came with being honest with myself on whatever kind of weird things that I have. Like, I come to conclusions in my own mind. Like, I jump to conclusions. I love like funny jumping to conclusion memes on the internet because I will just jump over a valley and come up with a conclusion. I'm really good at filling in the blanks with what I think is going on or what I think is happening. And so I had to really realize that like what I'm thinking is happening probably isn't happening. And that a lot of and also therapy, a lot of my issues come from my parents and how I was raised, of course, and their parents and how they were raised and the trauma that they went through, which then makes me sound off all these alarms as a protection mechanism, which did protect, say my mom when she was a child, but my mom was abused as a child. And do I need to have those same alarms flashing off for me in my life when it doesn't apply to my life? Absolutely not. So being aware of them and turning them off and realizing that I'm married to a different person, I'm in a different situation. And like, this is stupid, but reminding myself who I married. I married an honest, loving, trustworthy man. He's shown me over and over and over again. In fact, when we were first dating, I was like, "Okay, what is wrong with this guy? Like, something's wrong with you because no one's this nice. No one is this, like, he has all these wonderful qualities." And I'm like, when am I going to find like your skeletons in your closet? And I can say that he really doesn't have any. I mean, he snores at night sometimes when he lays on his back, but I just push him over to the side and then he's perfect again. But I don't want to call him perfect. If he's watching this, he's probably going to be so mad that I called him perfect because that's one of his, he hates that. But, he really is. So it's like reminding myself like, hey, I'm getting so resentful over whatever it is. You're not home. You're traveling a lot. We're focused on different things. We like almost live on like different planets. Like I'm on an island by myself or whatever it is. And realizing like, why are those thoughts going through my head, and how can I be responsible for them, and how can I realize what's actually going on here? What's actually going on here, like you said, you have a man who's out there changing lives. You know, and one of the other things that I've kind of had to think about is I'm going to put in real estate terms because that's actually how my therapist put it to me. But she was like, so for your life and your guys' ability to change people's lives and influence people and have them, you know, make money and get out of bad situations, and all of that goodness that comes from what Pace is creating comes at a cost. And so he's already signed the purchase contract. How much does this life cost that you guys have? He signed it, but you're not on the same page. You haven't signed it yet. So what do you have to do to make yourself okay with signing that contract? And so I was like, that's really interesting, because I've never really thought of myself as not being on board, but it gets you kind of, I don't know. I just have realized the older that I get, that the only person I can control is myself.
Right.
I don't want to control Pace. Like, I really don't. I've never been that type of person. I've never been that type of wife. It's really funny when people ask me if Pace can do something. I'm like, don't ask me, ask Pace. Like, gross. Want that man to do what that man wants to do. That's more attractive to me. If Pace came to me and was like, hey, do you mind if I go to dinner? I'd be like, you do what you want. I don't care. And I really am like that. So maybe I have a irrational leg up on most of these situations. But as far as like my own resentment, I've realized that a lot of it comes from myself.
Right.
And like either weird insecurities that I have that I need to work on, or weird fill in the blanks, or weird jumping to conclusions that aren't there. And I have to be the one to control my own reality and then make myself happy again. Because again, I cannot, like, and I don't think anybody should rely on their spouse as, does Pace make me happy? Absolutely. I'm head over heels in love with him. But is it something that I require in order to be a happy, fulfilled person? Absolutely not. I don't look for my fulfillment from my marriage. I look for it from myself.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
a really long answer for getting over resentment. But resentment is a very like ugly emotion to have. And maybe it's not ugly. I shouldn't say it's an ugly emotion to have. It's a very human emotion, but it's one that you don't want to have. It doesn't feel good. It feels yucky. So how did you get over yours?
Yeah, I still struggle with it a whole lot, and why I've had to learn so much about it. But that's just because I tend to go into victim mode, and I'm just old enough now to kind of recognize that that's what I do. I work really, really hard, but somehow with that hard work, which is also a story I think I got from some childhood trauma, so totally normal. With that hard work, then I have these expectations that it's like it can get kind of transactional.
Okay.
And so everybody kind of gets to their resentment in a different way. I think from what I've learned about, you know, the nervous system is that we do come up with these stories when we're kids, and then our frontal cortex develops enough and you're an adult and you have the capacity now to like cultivate and create something different. And that takes more mature, more evolved thinking that you literally didn't have as a child. But if you don't pressure that and push on that to create your own happiness, like resentment is the sneaky thing, because you think resentment happens from someone else, but your thoughts are always what cause your own emotions.
100%. I've learned that so much, because that's so true that you said that your thoughts are what causes your own emotions. I should preface that like neither of us are married to abusive or horrible people, narcissists or anything like that. So someone who's watching this who might be in that situation, then that's affecting your emotions. But when someone truly loves you, which both of our spouses love each other, and I'm sure everyone who's watching this, you know, even if you are at a hard place in your marriage, there either was or is love. And so looking at, Pace says this all the time to me, and he says, you should always assume the best from me. And that is so true, because it's like when I'm like assuming that he's doing something to hurt me or hurt the family or something, which doesn't really happen a lot. But, you know, if something like that, a thought comes up where I'm like, why are you doing this? It's like, even if I don't understand it fully, like I should just assume that he's doing that with the best intentions, like
Yeah.
whatever it is.
hmm Yeah, that and integrity. I mean, it does feel good to not have resentment, to, choose what you're going to make things mean. But I think you also have to be honest. And that's where the, abuse part comes into it, where it's like, yes, I can choose different thoughts about this, but would those different thoughts be honest? And are those different thoughts for the greater good? So
Right.
it's just kind of discerning, like, how old do I feel while I'm having these thoughts? Like, is
That's
this
an
a
interesting
genuine,
thought.
I need to listen to myself,
Mm-hmm.
older, mature thought? And you can still, like, you said, my husband is amazing and the perfect guy for me, but he's not perfect. And sometimes I do have to have boundaries, and I do have to say, this thing is important to me, or I can't be supportive of this deal right now because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And so the resentment happens by me being honest and not saying that I'm going to approve of a deal just so I can get his approval, but that I
Right.
am getting that happiness for myself and having a stewardship over saying, this is what is for the greater good for me, and still staying in my lane that this is for me. He might still say, yeah, even though that's for the greater good of you, this is also still the greater good of me. And I'm sorry that you're upset about it, and I really need to do it. Like
Right.
when I was really pushing on him to be like, no YouTube.
Right.
And he went and did it anyway. And I
Yeah.
think it was a real example to me of like, you know what? He gets to own his own life, and that's awesome. Even though it wasn't what I wanted him to do, but it gave me permission to own my own life and have boundaries. And we get to ask each other things. But we also have the option to say no. And that non-obligation is passion,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, I'm not stuck with you. Or when they do, choose to do what it is that you ask, they're choosing. They're not
Mm-hmm.
obligated to.
Right.
And that's how you feel free, but still be side by side to live how you want to be. And I think keeping those meaning frames of freedom and integrity top notch, and realizing that ownership again, that I'm either cultivating resentment, or I need to be woman, man enough to stand up for what is for the greater good and what is fair, and making
Right.
room for two. So if you're resentful because you really are being taken advantage of, like, say the truth and do what you can do. Or
Right.
do you need to be honest about the reason you're so jealous that they're happy is because you're not doing hard enough work to figure out how to make yourself happy? Like,
Right.
what's the truth going on? And then
Yes.
do that.
Yep. Getting into the bottom of like where the resentment starts from
Yes.
and what kind of ownership you can have over your own feelings and what the real thing is that's going
Yeah.
on.
And
I mean,
sometimes it makes sense to be resentful. I mean, I wouldn't say resentful, but just like not supportive.
yeah, Pace is listening to us, which makes me so nervous. Every time Pace listens to me, when I saw him make a comment, I started tripping over my words. I don't know why. I don't trip over my words when anyone else is watching me, but
It's
I'm like,
butterflies.
ah, I don't
It's
remember
cute.
how to speak English. But Pace brings up something that's very similar about you not wanting Jerry to do YouTube. Pace came home one day. Corbin was like a few weeks old, and again, I did not look at this with like Pace has our best intentions, and knowing now how this opportunity was given to him and all that went in behind it, and how kind of serendipitous it all was to even have been there. And then he was so excited. He brought it home to me. Laura, I'm so happy. And let alone him working hard enough to have the money to be able to buy this Home Festers franchise. He came home and he told me about it. And my first thing was, because it's a wholesale business that he bought. That's what Home Festers is. If anyone doesn't know, it's the We Buy Ugly Houses people. They're in most markets, but maybe some people don't know.
Okay.
But my first thing was, well, what happens when the market crashes? Because when I got my real estate license, there was no one had any equity. So you're going to go buy, I'm going to offer somebody cash and take part of their equity and then go sell it to somebody else. Like, how does that business model work when the market's crashed? And he looked at me and he was like, how can that be the first thing that you say is something negative? And I shouldn't have done that, And so it would, and so if I can look back on that situation, how can I be responsible for my own emotions? And what I was thinking was, I was thinking fear, fear-based, like how could you have gone and taken that much money that, and and it was the horrible thing for me to say that I didn't think it was a good idea. It ended up being one of the biggest blessings in our life. And it was a great purchase and it was exactly what he should have done. But we had a big, huge fight over it because I was like, that was stupid. You shouldn't have done that. Why would you pay that much for it? It's going to be worth nothing. And of course, even way back then, there was just rumors and inklings and a million people talking about how the market was going to crash. So anyways, it's just, I can feel exactly the same thing.
Well, there's process in that too, Laura, really quick. Like, I think it's so important for people to realize, like, it's not necessarily the worst thing. You know, we call it at our house disagreeing appropriately. You know, if you're being emotionally abusive, that's not okay. But conflict and, you know, being able to be like, hold on to yourself enough to listen to the concerns of a spouse, that's also how you get support. And so there's been some time, even when Jerry bought the hotel, I'm like, that's not real estate. That's hospitality. You know nothing about hospitality. And he literally looked like I'd punched him in the stomach, but he was like, oh my gosh, you're right. You know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you're disagreeing appropriately and just being able to bring two different perspectives, then like nothing's going wrong when you're having those disagreements. You're both growing up and you're both learning how to respect each other's separate gifts and separate perspectives. And it's getting you like closer and closer to each other by being able to also have the courage to disagree and stand on your own 2 feet and have the opportunity to see how different your spouse is than you and accept that.
Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful thing then when you do. But if you don't go through a little bit of a conflict to get there, that's also all the resentment builds up so much because they're just so afraid of the approval part instead of thinking of the bigger picture of like, how can we get to know and see the best part of each other?
Yeah. And I mean, you said a couple of things like, and this, I'm pulling this from earlier in our conversation as well, is being like a mature enough communicator. Should I have expressed my concerns over home investors? Absolutely. But I should have been a more mature communicator and more of an adult to say, wow, this is an incredible opportunity. I am really proud of you. How did you, you know, have some, like it's, like have some positives in there and say, would you mind if you can help me feel better about some of my concerns? And then have said it rather than, you know, but again, it's just, it comes with maturity and being able to say stuff like that. And, you know, also again, you said it's not just about someone's approval. And Pace has said a few times too, like men just want their wives' approval. And maybe now talking to you, maybe that's a little bit of an immature mind frame. And maybe that's like a younger man's type of thing. Like, I just want to go out and make, you know, get approval, where it's like finding, you know, you're not needing someone's approval. And maybe Pace subconsciously did that, where he was like, I don't need your approval to do this. I feel confident this is the right step and I'm going to do it anyways. Like, you can be mad, but this is good.
Yeah. Well, and everybody wants approval. And I think that's good and fine and a beautiful part of really like adoring someone and wanting them to be happy with you and you care how they feel. It's more like if you need someone's approval, then you just know you're not necessarily making choices from your higher self. You're doing it just to get approval. And so you might be doing things that are not smart. So when you're really thinking like, of course I want approval, but I'm not going to do it at the expense of not saying what really needs to be said that I think you're not having perspective over.
Okay, then I take back what I said. Seeking your wife's approval is a good thing because that's what keeps probably men trimming their ear hair and washing their butt cracks is because they want our approval. So men keep seeking your wife's approval. It's actually a form of love. But if you're not doing it from your highest and best self and you're not being true to yourself, then that's not a good way. This wonderful person, Gmo, he said, are women really good at spotting possible negative outcomes? I have a very a big opinion on that. I think that the support system to someone who is a risk taker, which this personality type, man or woman, tends to be a big risk taker. Like they will, jump out of a proverbial plane. They
Pretty
will
fiery.
take gambles, and I'm a lot more conservative and I'm a lot more scared. And so you call
too.
it, you hear like scarcity mindset and stuff like that. I don't think that that's what it is. I think it's just a different personality type. And not every support system has my personality type where, you're good at finding negative outcomes. I think it's just, in my situation, it's generational. My dad was raised by a woman, single mom, who was born in 1917, who went through the Great Depression and both world wars and an abusive marriage, and then raised a son by herself. So my dad is scared. So I inherited a lot of fear. And for my mom came from a first generation American family where her dad was white and her mom was Mexican, and it was abusive, and it was abusive to the mom, and it was abusive to her, and it was abusive to her siblings, and there was alcohol involved. There was just horrible things going on. So I inherited that. So my first knee-jerk reaction is, how can I protect? I'm scared. And so I'm working on that in myself, but I don't think that women are really good at seeing negative outcomes. I think that what you're probably seeing in the risk taker entrepreneur and relationship with the support system, which support system by default means that we're more grounded, we're more stable. That's what a foundation is. It's something that's always stable, that they can go and have their head pie in the sky.
Totally.
And so I think that our spotting negative outcomes is actually could be a strength to temper some of the fire that these people are spewing out, and maybe help them realize things like, hey, you know nothing about hospitality that maybe he hadn't thought of. And it kind of sounds like he hadn't thought about that yet until you said it. So, and Jerry's mature enough to have not taken that as a personal attack on him,
Right.
but to say, I'm married to someone who has a different set of strengths, and maybe I should listen to somebody who can kind of temper my boiling hot water, and in a lot of ways, her pointing that out made it to where when the construction aspect of the hotel was done, he had actually thought about the hospitality aspect that was then going to come, rather than it smacking him in the face once he was out of his comfort zone and what he's used to.
Totally.
So it probably was really actually a very good thing for someone to, oh my gosh, Jerry's in here. Now I'm like, they're both in here. That is so funny.
Stinker
Jerry's
guys.
watching this too. That's so funny. Anyways, but
I love
someone
that.
said color of your skin doesn't have anything to do with the abuse. It definitely doesn't. I was just pointing out that I'm coming from a especially in the 1950s, there was a definite power dynamic that was going on where my grandma was not an American citizen. She was Mexican, and she married a white business owner in America, had children with him, and that's why she was here. And so his abuse that was going on, we're not talking about today's times, and there's still some lingering aspects of this, but this was not a situation where my grandma could go get a divorce and take the kids and have money for her 6 children. Like it was so, and again, I'm like, I don't know if you're getting upset about anything, racially charged, but facts are facts. And that's my background from my mom and who raised me. So, but yeah, definitely not tied to that. Let's see. Let's get another good question up here. If anybody has a question that you would like AnnMarie to answer. Oh, we got a new comment. Put it up here. Let me see another really good one. We have some wholesale questions in here as well, which I definitely want to highlight as well. But and someone said that this feels like a girl's conversation we shouldn't be listening to, but he loves it. So
Good.
Joseph, if you want your significant other to listen to this, they actually might get something out of it. You might have a conversation that can help your marriage and push it forward into better understanding. So let's see what else I want. Pace is so good at this, at finding these comments, and then like I don't know if he like marks them or something, but it's hard when there's a decent amount coming and going. So let's see. I found a good one. Where was that? Joel wants to know if you would ever do a relationship course. And I know you're inside of Jerry's community on Wednesdays, but I think that you're more in the personal development side, which I think fits you extremely well. I don't know if necessarily
Yes.
you want to go full marriage side, but you
Yes.
do mentor his students in like some
Yes.
more, I guess, what would you call it? It's definitely like emotional education and bettering yourself.
Yeah. So we are actually getting ready for a marriage retreat coming this June. We're doing
Okay.
our first one. So if you follow me or Jerry on social media, we've got more info coming out. Super excited. First one. So passionate about it because we've gone through a lot. We've like almost lost our marriage. If we're really honest, I think that when I talk to most people, they've gotten to those points. That's a normal process to go through. And we've learned a ton, and it's just these motivations or this polarity that you start to understand about. That's what I help our fast track students to kind of see their motivation in this whole validation or this approval part, that our nervous system wants approval so badly that that's where the integrity goes awry. And so whether it's your relationship with your deal or the relationship with your business or the relationship with your spouse, what I predominantly teach about is that when you're doing it for that approval, when you're doing something for a reinforcement of your ego, that's not actually, the real goal that you think you're trying for.
Right.
So you'll use that marriage or you'll use that deal to reinforce whatever's wrong with you because that's what you're deathly afraid of. So it's really important to be able to figure out, people will tell me about their fears that they have in doing a deal or failing at a deal. And I tell them, well, that's because your actual goal is to reinforce your ego through this deal. You're not trying to do a deal, because if you're really learning how to do deals, then you would know deals come with mistakes and failures, and marriage is that way too. And so when you're willing to go into those and not make it mean anything about you, that's the super fuel to success in any relation. It's my specialty is, your motivation, what's coming from your nervous system, what's coming from your higher self. And, just being able to really clearly see that everybody has both of those motivations in their brains at any given time. It's normal, but just like which one is leading you. Right. So that it's relational therapy. Like, how do I relate to whatever it is that I'm talking about?
Right.
So
you're doing a marriage retreat, which I do know about. So how can people get some information on that? Should they just follow you both on social media? Do you have a date and a time you can share with people, or how they can sign up if they're interested?
Yes, the date is in June. Jerry, if he's watching, he's going to shoot me for not remembering exactly what the date is. He won't shoot me, but if you follow me, it's a Grow in Norton is my Instagram handle. Then the link to sign up is in the bio. I don't even know. I think we have a couple spots. I don't even know if we have spots left, but I'm super
my goodness. Okay, it might all be sold out. Well, then they're going to have to wait for the next one.
Yeah.
This is a good question from Josh, and I think that this is probably one of the most important parts where you can make or break a relationship is choosing the right person. Now, you and Jerry, you got together and made a lifelong decision before your prefrontal cortex was fully developed.
True.
And and you guys have gone through so many different eras within your relationship, which is wild. So this is like the total opposite. Like, how can I engineer the perfect person because now I'm already in the business? So should you try to date like-minded folk? I personally don't think that it matters if they're in the business or not. The only thing that I have seen from people who are both in the business is you are going to then have a really, the comparison, the who's doing what is a little, it goes over to business as well, because then it's, if you're both wholesaling, or you're wholesaling and she's a realtor, or you're wholesaling and she's fix and flipping, it's really easy to start comparing your lives and then trying to decide, should we do this together or are we competing with each other? That opens up a whole other can of worms that you'll have to delve into. But the the flip side of that coin, where you guys might compare each other and decide who's better and more worthwhile and, you know, all those horrible things, is you are automatically married to someone who understands your work life like perfectly. You know, they get it fully because they're in it. You can also do it together. But what I think is more important when deciding on who to date and spend your life with, and Pace and I did this when we were dating, and I had done this prior to him, and I'm sure he had done this prior to meeting me. But since I had a child already, I had realized really quickly, I need to figure out what I want, because I don't have the time to fart around, because someone else is relying on me to figure it out and to give them a stable, loving home, whatever that looks like. If it's me alone or it's me with somebody, here's the requirements for that somebody who's going to be able to be a part of my life. And so I had this, you know, list. And did it have to be perfect? Was it 500 things long and included things like he had to be 6 feet tall? No, it had things like, I want someone who wants to get married. I want someone who wants to be a dad. I want somebody who, you know, can lead my family. It was my own personal set of lists. And then when Pace and I went to dinner on our first date night, he had his list, like, which included things all the way down to, because he was married before, if you don't love my dog, bye. And that's silly, but he loved his dog. And so what I think is more important for you deciding who to date is to come up with, what do you want? Like, who do you want to be? If you want children or not, that doesn't matter. But if you do, like, who would you want to be the mother of your children? You know, it's not just, oh, she's pretty and I'm attracted to her, or sorry, I'm assuming your sexuality, sorry, but whoever it is, it's not like, oh, this person's attractive and, you know, this is going to be great. And that's like more being in lust than being in love. And if you're trying to make a conscious decision on who to share your life with, to give yourself the most,
best odds.
Yeah, the best odds. Then figure out what you want and go for somebody like that, rather than deciding on who to be with based on, you know, their profession, I guess, if you will. Yeah. Let's see if there's any other good ones before I let you go, because you have kids too. Oh, Flipping Mastery Couples Retreat.
Very fun, baby.
Look at that. That went up there. That's so great. I don't know if we have too many other ones that I can find. They're way back in the back, but Tony said that this is hitting home right now. So Tony, feel free to share this. I know I'm an open book on Instagram. People can message me and talk about things that they want to. And a couple of people have said that thank you for being so honest. And I think that's really important, because I've seen marriages fall apart that I thought were fine based on the conversations that we're having at intimate dinner tables, where, you know, you're hearing all of this stuff about this happy marriage, and then all of a sudden it falls apart, and you hear why it fell apart, and you're like, wait, what? So I think being honest is one of the biggest things that I think that we can all do. And we're not here to tell you, hey, we have the perfect marriage and we figured it out and we're perfect people and we're married to perfect people, because that is so goofy when people try to give you advice and they say they have it all figured out. No one has it all figured out. And life will continue, and you would like to think that we're all on the same path and we're all going to be parallel and we're going to be moving at the same speed. But sometimes, like, especially with what's going on with me right now, we're not moving at similar speeds. Pace is rocketing up to the sky as far as career is going. And I'm, you know, at home, and that's fine. So, but I'm excited for your couples retreat. That's going to be amazing. Pace just said we're going to do a couple retreat in Montana. So Pace is making us more Montana plans. Just so you know,
I've had people ask me about Montana. So they want to be able to do it on that side of the ocean. So it's
the first one in June is in Puerto Rico, correct?
It is. Yes.
Okay.
It's in Puerto Rico.
Which is still nice, because if you're, you know, in Arizona or on the West Coast, that's a really nice trip with your spouse. Absolutely. So
totally quick trip, but nothing is going wrong. All these questions are so great to see, you know, with anybody thinking that anybody is perfect or has it all figured out. Like, these are just principles that you keep practicing. And that's the beauty in life, doing that side by side with someone. that like we did get married so young, and we just had to decide, are we going to turn to each other and grow, or are we going to turn away and, not grow?
That's such a
And
beautiful thing to say, because that's one of the things that I think is one of the most beautiful parts about marriage is being each other's best friend. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about
oh, it's a
doing all
process.
these things perfectly all the time and having the perfect response. But people
Mhm.
who say they're perfect are lying. They're not
Yeah.
perfect. And
No.
so it's growing and learning together, but having Jerry be the one that you turn to,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
when you need someone the most is so beautiful.
Yeah, totally. And that's what happens in business too. I think anybody who's, watching and trying to get some inspiration and looking at these people who've been doing it for a while. We've been married for 25 years. We
Oh my
have
gosh.
had, 10 babies. We've got special needs. We've had severe illness in our kids. I was in heart failure. I was on a heart transplant list. And so really severe struggles, multiple deals that we lost so much money on, and times where it was so easy for us to say things that were stupid and do things that were stupid, and we did, and then still turn and say it's okay, we did the deal wrong, or we talked to each other wrong, or this parenting is not how we want to show up, and it's fine. It doesn't, again, this doesn't mean anything about me. It's not how I identify, because I'm trying to create an experience in life. I'm not trying to prove my worth, not by the deals that I do, by how few fights I have with my spouse, by, how many college applications my kid gets. We're just trying to create an experience. And if you try to create experience in real estate, you have to fail. You have to have a bunch of deals fall through. You have to have arguments. You have to have kids that tell you you're a flipping jerk every once in a while, so you can learn. And the joy, it comes from knowing it's learning
Yeah.
and not, your identity.
Yeah. The Nortons have so many beautiful philosophies on life, one of which is that you guys don't ever quit and you do hard things. But
Norton's so hard.
this is also really cool too, because it's like with a marriage, sometimes you can kind of think, oh, it's I've messed up to the point where I can't go back. And that's not what it is. It's, when you're having hard times, it's really easy to revert to your lizard brain and all these low vibrational emotions that come out.
Totally.
And that's what life is. And I remember probably when I was like 25, I was like, I talked to my mom, and I don't really ever talk to my mom. She's not someone, I do talk to my mom, sorry, but she's not someone who I will go to, especially at that time in my life, for advice. The older
Yeah.
I get, the more I'm calling my mom.
Yeah.
But at that point, I called her and I said, this is what's going on. When does life get any easier? Do I need money? What am I missing here? This is hard. And she just said, life is hard. If it's not if it's not this, it's work. If it's not
Right.
work, it's your spouse. If it's not your spouse, it's a new baby, it's a toddler, it's a teenager,
The illness.
it's health, it's the loss of
Yeah.
a parent. It is just hard. And you
Yeah.
need to figure out how to be happy in the hard. You need to
Yeah.
figure
I
out how
love
to
that.
dance in the rain, because it's not going to stop raining. There's always going to be something.
You're so good at that, Laura.
And you've talked about like not making yourself the victim, but I just love how you're saying that. It's like, all these things that you guys have been through where you didn't show up in a way that you were proud of. You didn't think, well, this is just it. This is how we interact with each other. This is life. That again is like, it would have limited what beauty your marriage has been, multiple times. And it's nice to see somebody talk about life in a way that it's like, I'm here to have an experience. It's not going to always be perfect. I'm always going to be working on it.
Mhm.
And it's not about like these like bars of like perfection. It's about the experience of life. That's why we're here. So I
Mhm.
love that. That's so beautiful to hear, because it's like when you have these people get up who you look up to and they set that as this is the bar, that really makes me mad. I don't know why, but it makes me so mad, because it makes everyone else watching feel like pieces of crap that they're
Yeah.
not doing it. And you can go into the whole thing, well, they're only sharing the highlights of their life. So of course it
Mhm.
seems perfect. But it's like, let's be full blown human
Honest.
beings. And because that's what I want to hear. That's who I want to learn from. I want to
That's
learn
what
from
helps.
somebody who isn't in a relationship with someone for 3 years and all they can talk about is how perfect their marriage is and how perfect their wife is. It's like, give me someone who's had 10 kids and has been married over 20 years and who's had real life things happen to them and has come out. I've never seen a couple more in love than you two.
I do
It's
really
so
love that.
beautiful. And so it's like,
You're so sweet.
show me
I feel
that.
so blessed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
truly. So thank you. And I again, I like, maybe I'm just gonna have to call you and you and I with all of our free time, and we can
Well,
just like have a chat with all my 50 questions that I have for you. I could literally talk to you for 5 hours, but we're
me
under at
too.
6:20, and
Me
Brent's really
too.
pretty punctual at getting off at 6 o'clock. So I'm just keeping us long, and I kept you longer than I should have. But
That's
I
okay.
just wanted
Been
to
a
tell you
blast.
how much I love and admire you. I really do. And I mean, not just for your marriage, but just for who you truly are as a person. You like calm me down in ways that I can't even begin to tell you. So thank you. And thank you for
Laura,
sharing things
you're
so
so sweet.
personal. And, you know, the love isn't just there for Jerry. He's not the only flipping genius in the family. I think that he's got one powerful wife next to
You're
him.
so
by
sweet.
his side.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura, for thinking of me and helping me to cultivate. I love getting on calls like this. I love being around people like you because of how present you are. I do think that you have a more natural gift of seeing what is good and just whatever's going on, no matter what chaos, being able to find the joy in the small little things. It's not a superpower of mine. So love hanging with you guys whenever we get to be together, whether it's Florida and Disney or Montana, which I'm super excited about for this summer.
Me too.
But we
Me
have
too.
lots in common, and I think similar missions and visions, and helping me have the opportunity to say these things out loud. It just helps me to bring it home and remember we're just practicing, and hopefully that is an inspiration, and you being willing to take time away from baby to inspire everybody else and bringing me along for the ride. Super appreciate it.
Thank you. We love you. And again, sorry, it's probably 10 o'clock there now. 10 o'clock.
No, it's 9:20.
Okay. Well, still very late, but thank you for spending the time, taking time away from your family. So we love you. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Super
you for
fun.
being here. And again, both AnnMarie and I have open Instagram DMs. So if you ever have a
send me
specific
something.
question or something that's a little too personal, you can always ask us there.
Yep.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.